Hi guys, welcome back to another edition of The Wiccan Conservative. As you know from the last show, we've been kind of going through the impeachment hearings and seeing what all is coming to light, if there's anything new coming to light, and critically thinking, well, most of us are critically thinking about the process and how and why we've gotten this far. So I have been watching all of the daytime impeachment inquiries, and I have been focusing mostly on the people who were in direct contact or should have been in direct contact with the president during the infamous Ukraine call and during the proceedings of the foreign affairs that were going on in Ukraine at the time. And not so much on the evening people who were testifying in the evening. Now I'm going back and watching after the fact and sneaking in clips and things that were being said on mainstream media talking points and things like that. But I really haven't paid too much attention to the evening in impeachment hearings or whatever you want to call them. It seems like most of their star witnesses are coming up during the daytime, and they had Ambassador Sondland on yesterday, and we went through his entire testimony. And if you go through any type of CNN, ABC, MSNBC, even Fox News, I think was starting to, and I think I even heard Glenn Beck starting to kind of jump on this narrative of, they finally, they got him now, and he's backtracking on his prior testimony and what he claims was said, and now he's saying that his memory is being refreshed from different things that different people are saying. So, I started taking notes, and I started kind of interacting with people online. And I know, we can go back and forth and say, don't talk to the people online, and they're keyboard warriors and they don't listen to the facts. And my points with kind of even just being on social media is it's not for the person who comes to contradict your argument. That's not who you're it's not even really an argument at this point, because most of the time, I don't know about you folks, but even just facts and things that are said and things that should be happening come across as, I guess, a personal attack on some of these people. So they go very hard with names and, oh, your boy this and your boy that. I'm nobody. I don't know anybody in the White House or in Congress personally. I don't have any interactions with any type of, bolstered personalities, and I'm sure that you don't either. And I don't hold you people as a personal account. I'm just telling you what logic and fact dictates based upon what we're seeing here. And to be honest, those arguments aren't made with the people that you're arguing with. They're for the people who are going to come across that Facebook post or that Twitter feed and are going to ask themselves maybe some questions that they didn't ask before, and things that maybe they didn't think about before, and try to put themselves into the position that whatever it is you're arguing or debating about, try to put themselves into that position where they can, see it from a different angle. And when I started this channel, like I say all the time, I am a conservative. I hold conservative values. I have always been a registered Republican since the day I turned 18. And I've always held conservative fiscal values. I've always had kind of the apple pie, baseball, American dream type of idea about our country. I like the idea that we were a melting pot, that we did accept all these different types of people and tried to pull them into what we thought was the best way to live. And that's not, I don't want to go off onto a Democratic bashing session, because, obviously they're doing a pretty good job of doing that themselves. But the difference solely between Republicans and Democrats, in my own opinion, is just how they want to spend the money. And everybody keeps saying, oh, Republicans, they only care about money. They only care about money. It's not that we only care about money. It's that we really care about how we spend that money and what is really in the best interest of bringing people up in the world, as opposed to pushing them down or telling them that you need a handout to get ahead, that you need this. I have no problem helping people in need, and I honestly feel that Americans would be more charitable if we were given the chance to make that decision on our own instead of being forced into it. And even just listening to the Democratic talking points during their debates, you can see that they don't want you to have a choice. They don't want you to decide whether you want to be charitable with your money or not. They want to make those decisions for you. So when we pull ourselves into this Ukraine investigation, and what's going on in the White House and in the Capitol buildings, and how they are trying to push a duly elected president out. I think even Nancy Pelosi was caught saying that elections are dangerous and that the American people shouldn't have the decision. That's going way off the deep end, if you ask me. There used to be a difference, simply in spending money. Now there seems to be a huge difference in ideology and how we uphold the Constitution. So pulling ourselves back into this investigation on Ukraine and how crazy and why would Donald Trump be accused of this quid pro quo, or what exactly what do you think that the investigation is about? What do you really think that they are angry about? What do you really feel that these people are trying to get out of these proceedings? Because a couple different talking points, obviously to myself, came up while I was watching the hearings. Why are we focused on this call for an investigation into Hunter Biden's relationship on Burisma? The key point with Burisma, in my opinion, is that the Ukraine and the American government already knew that this company was corrupt, and apparently, there was already an investigation into the goings-on of Burisma and how they were spending their money and where they were getting their money, and specifically, I believe, how they were spending their government fundings. And I believe that the Ukraine had every right to ask them, if we're donating X amount of dollars to you and we're giving you X amount of money, what are you doing with it? And, we go into the investigation, and a lot of people haven't heard about it. And a lot of people didn't know that the prosecutor that was looking into that investigation was fired by the old president of Ukraine. And, after that, the administration just kind of moved on and kept going. And when you go back and look in hindsight, since, everybody wants to talk about their hindsight these days, going back and looking in hindsight, I ask myself, well, how all of a sudden did they assume that there was corruption? There seems to be a consensus that there was a corruption with this company, and there was a investigation into corruption with this company, but magically, the prosecutor was fired. And then, you have Joe Biden, who was caught on tape kind of bragging about the incident. And I've seen the video, and I encourage you to go look for the video where, he basically told them. He was, very candid and said, I don't think that you should be looking into it. And everything seems on the up and up and for this. And, there was a little quid pro quo going on. If the special prosecutor decided to continue on with the investigation. And when you go into the actual Trump call and read the transcripts, I think that the president addressed it very clearly and said, hey, you know what? We were kind of interested in the same thing you guys were interested in. We've got our former vice president. His son is on the board in this company, and he's over here kind of flapping his jaws about what could and could not happen if the investigation continued, and then magically your investigation ends. And you know, with you being a new leader and coming on to the scene, I think that maybe could have been one of the things that your people would like to see out of you. I know that I would like to see out of you. And again, this is, Trump kind of talking. I would like to know the outcome of the investigation and how far it's going, and let us know if there's anything shady on our end. Like, I don't understand why that would be a high crime or a misdemeanor, or why this is being pulled in as an impeachable offense, because ultimately at the end of the day, don't you want your president to question the relationships between maybe foreign officials and the internal officials here stateside? And I think that's exactly what he did with Isanovich after, I think a lot of them are admitting that they were over there kind of talking in the ears of foreign officials where they had no business to be talking in the ears of the foreign officials on their own personal merits. You're there to represent the United States of America. You're supposed to hold our best interests. The people that come up with your talking points and tell you what you can and can't say, I think is kind of the big picture here. Why are you people over here talking into these foreign official ears, telling them specifically, don't listen to the president? And you're telling me that the president asking for an investigation. I don't think that he was really asking, but telling me that he's asking for this investigation, while in the same breath you're telling me that you spoke to foreign officials and you told them, don't listen to the United States Commander-in-Chief. One of these things is not like the other. Again, you don't have to like POTUS. I don't like all the decisions he makes. I'm not an always Trumper. Okay, the whole Second Amendment, gun rights and getting into amending how we get our guns, how we register our guns, and what we do with our guns. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. So I'm not an always Trumper, but this is insanity. And just in the simple, logical steps of how my brain processes information. So my next question was, if you can't get him for colluding and you can't get him for kind of trying to break up the love fest between Hunter Biden and Burisma, and it's out of his realm to go and ask these things to happen, or kind of guide a new leader in the right direction for his country, and you want to switch in tactics and say that this is Trump digging up dirt on Biden. He could have went about that a much different way. He could have taken the words straight from Joe Biden's mouth and put that into a campaign reel. He's having no trouble in his popularity poll. The people that are having trouble are people like Joe Biden, are people like Amy Klobuchar, are people like Kamala Harris, are people like Cory Booker. Those are the people that are having problems in the polls. And it's not that they're having problems because they're bad people. I don't necessarily think that they're bad people. They just have bad ideas. They are pandering to such a minute members of the community. They're taking bad ideas that only work on small scales and trying to blow them up and make them work on big scales. And people like you and I, people that, my 20 followers that follow me, and thank you all for being here, they come back to reality and are like, okay, that would work in this community and that would work here, but it's not going to work on a national scale. It's not going to work for all the people all the time. Lots of things don't work for all the people all the time. We just do our best to make the best of, what policies are in place and what's going on. But again, if this is Trump digging up dirt on Biden, why do we even have to have Democratic primaries? Because to me, it sounds like you've already made your decision on which candidate that you guys are going to prop up and stand behind and support. Because if this was a campaign thing, why wouldn't he go after other candidates? Why is he going after Joe? You're going to sit here and tell me, oh, well, Joe's our best candidate. He's the one and he's the biggest threat. But you're talking about pandering to a community who doesn't, believe in the white, straight male patriarchy. And that's the candidate you put on a pedestal. I would believe that narrative more if he was going around asking to dig into Kamala Harris's past. I would believe that more if he even went down and started looking at people's voting records and put their voting records on blast. I don't think that this is digging up political dirt. There's a lot of other different things that he could look up and here in America, and it wouldn't be hard but a Google search away to come up. So come on with that. This is nothing to do with a political campaign. Yes, we are on the verge, we are on the cusp of 2020, but let's be real here. We're not even in an election year. This isn't even like it's a couple months away. You've got a whole year until the next election cycle. So, we're all getting ready. We all got to have our people kind of in a row and ducks in a line and all that jazz. But I'm not understanding how all of a sudden this went from being, Russia interference to no, it's Ukraine interference, and no, this is treason. No, this is just a campaign violation. What kind of like Sondland asked Trump, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I don't get it. You need to come to a conclusion. It can't be all these things. It's impossible. So the other thing that kind of really struck me funny was him, going back to work for Ukraine unpaid. I think at the beginning of his testimony, the intro testimony, he talked about, he retired and then he went back to Ukraine. This was Volker. Returned back to Ukraine unpaid. I'm kind of curious what drives somebody to go back to work unpaid. It seems like it would be the noble thing to do, but let's be really honest here. Who's working for free in any country, let alone the United States, and somebody that holds such a big position, such a big power, and has so much responsibility? Because let's face it, even Mr. Sondland had said about, oh, well, I go through all these meetings and people talk about how, stark it is in their memories and how big of a deal it is for a lot of other people. But for me, it's no big deal. I do it every day. So, do you do it just because you want to, feel important? I'm just a little taken aback by what you're trying to project and what is actually happening. And I think that's our biggest key here is we need to see what's happening and then look beyond it to critically analyze why it's happening that way. Another big thing is the election influence. We keep hearing about, oh, everybody's in a consensus. It's election influence. It was influenced by the Russians. It was influenced by Ukraine. It's influenced by this. Personally, I wasn't influenced by anybody. I have my own ideas. I go to the ballot box with my own kind of checklist as to what I want out of a candidate and who I've got an idea of who I want to vote for. And yeah, there's a couple people there that I'm like, oh, I never even saw that person campaign, or I never even heard of this person. But for the most part, I don't think that I am influenced by anything other than my own research and judgment. And I like to think that the American people are the same way. It sounds scary. It sounds terrible, but what did they really do? Did they, we heard that they had paid for ads. They leaked information. They, padded votes, hacked machines. I mean, brainwashed people. Like, can we come to a conclusion exactly what the interference was? Because we've heard so many different stories. So tell me exactly how, because the only interference realistically that we saw was coming from the local voter volunteers who were misplacing votes. They were poor machinery that wasn't, functioning properly. And it was all here at home. So how do we as Americans, how do we deal with that going forward? How do we correct or rectify the faulty machinery? How do we make sure that there's enough people in each polling location so that everybody gets the opportunity to vote? And I'm not saying everybody gets a vote, because we all know that that's a false narrative too. You earn the privilege to vote by being an active citizen in your country. It's not your right to vote. You have to earn the privilege. It's a privilege to be involved. And the privilege comes with, as I said before, being an active, upstanding citizen in your country. So I really want some clarification as to what election influence is in real time. And I want to see on paper. I don't want to see, well, the Russians ran this ad and they ran that. Political ads are ran every day. Let's be real here. So I don't really care who it's bought and paid for. It's just words on a screen, words on a paper, words that are coming out of people's mouths. And if you really think that we're that stupid, that we're just listening to other people's interpretation, and that's what's changing our mind, and that's what's making this bolster for Donald Trump, then I think that you are not paying attention to what the American people are really doing out here. So moving forward, the consensus is just completely all together that there apparently corruption was rampant, not only in Russia and not only here at home, but it was also corrupt in Ukraine. So the old president and the old Ukraine leadership was corrupt, and they took the credit for colluding with Russia. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but that's what's being fed to us now, is they took the credit for colluding with Russia, even though they're at war with Russia. Ukraine was more interested in influencing the election in 2016. How does that? I can't even explain it to you because it's so convoluted. So the consensus is Ukraine was corrupt. Why was it corrupt? Because it was working with the enemy on trying to influence the elections here at home. Well, if you go back into the old administration and you listen to these people talk about how everything was status quo and everything was, we had a policy, we had a procedure, and then Donald Trump got involved and policy and procedure, it went out the window. It was unusual. It was weird. It was, not normal. This wasn't what we normally did. So you're basically telling us that you were okay with everything being corrupt. You were okay with how the status quo was in Ukraine. And what made you mad is when the new administration took over and Donald Trump said, hey, don't end up like the corrupt administration prior to. Please, do your due diligence, find your own information out. And if you find something that falls back on the United States or any member of the United States, let me know. Let me know. So in my eyes, these people are coming right up and saying, yeah, we knew it was corrupt. And we had no problem with it being corrupt. When the problem started was when Donald Trump decided that he was going to end that corruption. That's when we were like, okay, wait a second, there's a problem here. There's a problem here. So the other key factor that I pulled out of this is apparently if you know someone for a long time, they can't do anything wrong. They can't do anything wrong. Well, I knew this person for, 25 years. I knew this person for 30 years. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. Lots of people, kind of go with this status quo. Well, they never did anything before, so that means that they can't do anything in the future. Look, we've all been kind of in a rock and a hard place at certain times where we've done things that are out of character. We've done things that maybe we wouldn't have done if we were faced with other choices. So when you're talking about exposing yourself or exposing something that you did wrong, of course, you're not going to be forthcoming. Who likes to say that they're wrong? Who likes to go out and say, I did something that I'm not proud of, and I was a part of this, and I kept my mouth shut for so long that I became an accomplice. I became the accessory to this bad behavior, and I took it way too far, and I let it go on for way too long, because who's going to listen to little old me? And that's kind of what they wanted to play with Yasanovich's testimony. How does it feel? How did you feel losing your job? And how did you feel when they told you that POTUS was going to take you out of your position? Listen, people lose their jobs every single day. It's just, a company lets go employees, it lays off employees. It's for the growth and expansion, and sometimes it's for performance. And lots of people don't even like to acknowledge the performance basis of the issue that you're being let go for performance issues. But beyond all that, beyond all of this, why does any of this really matter? Why are we here now watching these people? Why am I here on tape talking about it, especially when so many people are this is a farce and this doesn't matter, and it's not going to go past the Senate, and this everything that goes along with it. My whole argument, my whole thought process on this, besides this being in your face, blatant attempt to overthrow a duly elected president, we are talking about election interference in real time. These people are out here telling you how to make your vote. They're out here telling you that what you know to be true and what you know to be fact is wrong. And actually, you should believe them because they've been in their positions for so long. That's what they're telling the American people. And to be honest with you, that's the whole reason for all of this hoopla. It's to get into the undecided voter's head and make them think twice before they cast the ballot in 2020 for Donald Trump. I don't believe that this has anything to do with anybody trying to do the right thing. I don't believe that it has anything to do with is it quid pro quo? Did he commit treason? Did he do this, that, and the third? It has nothing to do with that. They want to sway your mind. They want you. And even the new polls that are coming out with millennials talking about giving up First and Second Amendment rights, they're trying to sway your vote here at home. Don't let them get into your head. Keep your logic about you. Ask questions of people who are forcing this narrative down your throat, and think for yourself, what would you do if you were in this position and your workmates were going to your boss and telling them, hey, I don't have any proof that she's not doing her job. I just don't like her and want her fired. So that's all I have for you today. I will catch you guys on the next one.